want to welcome you to another installment of my video blog, A Walk Through the Prophets. We are continuing our march through the book of Ezekiel. Last week we looked at how God's extreme message was used through Ezekiel in order to get through to Israel's extreme rebellion. This week we're going to continue on kind of a theme that we saw started last time, how God used Ezekiel as a visual example or illustration to get his point across to his rebellious chosen people. So at the beginning of chapter 5, what God has Ezekiel do is this. He says, Ezekiel, I'd like you to take a sharp sword and use it as if it were a barber's razor. And I want you to shave your head, shave your beard, and then I'll have you do some things with the hair as a visual illustration of what I'm going to be doing to the children of Israel. And so I thought, in the spirit of things, I would go ahead and do the same thing. So I have myself here a handy dandy sword, and I'm going to go ahead and kind of do what Ezekiel did. Alright, now this sword isn't exactly the sharpest tool in the arsenal, however, it's good enough to do what we need it to do. So Ezekiel, as usual, was immediately obedient. So he began shaving off his hair. I'm sure he has probably had more than I do, but yeah, he went to work. Yeah, that it works pretty well, and so I'm going to continue on shaving. So don't mind me for right now. Alright, well I think that job's done. Now, what happens next, God has Ezekiel weigh out the hair into 3 equal parts using scales. And then he'll do something with each third, representing what was going to be happening to a third of the children of Israel. Pretty hefty stuff. Pretty strong message. Alright, so my Ezekiel hairdo job is done. Now on to the serious business of what God's message was through Ezekiel. Now what God had Ezekiel do was this, and I'll be reading chapter 5, starting with, actually I'll go with verse 1. Now you, son of man, Ezekiel, take a sharp sword, use it as you would a barber's razor, and shave your head and beard. Then take a pair of scales and divide the hair. You are to burn up 1/3 of it and the city when the days of the siege have ended. You are to take 1/3 and slash it with the sword all around the city, and you are to scatter 1/3 to the wind, for I will draw a sword to chase after them. So the message here is burn, slash, and scatter. This is what's going to be happening to my people. And even later on towards the end of chapter 5, there's a clear explanation of this. Verse 12, 1/3 of your people will die by plague and be consumed by famine. 1/3 will fall by the sword all around you, and I will scatter 1/3 to every direction of the wind. Pretty serious stuff. So, the first third of Ezekiel's hair is to be burned up, which represents 1/3 of the children of Israel being destroyed by plague and famine. Pretty serious stuff. Pretty sick. Another third of Ezekiel's hair was to be slashed with a sword all throughout the city. Then the last third would represent the third of Israel that would be scattered to the 4 winds, and this would just be scattered throughout the city there. And out of those people that were scattered, God does preserve a small amount of them to be a remnant. However,
the majority of the children of Israel here are being punished. Why? One thing that has hit me regarding how God handles his children is Hebrews talks about how God sometimes will punish those whom he loves. And then, I believe in Romans, God talks about how sometimes he'll give people over to the depravity of their minds, to their sinful natures. So they'll, for a time, have their way, where we as people will be so insistent on plowing through and living life our way that he'll let us so we can hit rock bottom and learn tough lessons. I think this case of Ezekiel being an illustration of the children of Israel shows that I think the children of Israel are not no longer are they being allowed to have their own way. They are being punished severely. Why does God care so much about what the children of Israel are doing? Now, the main thing that they had done is they had turned their hearts toward idols, idolatry, turning their hearts away from God. That's serious. I think two things come to mind why God cares so much in this case. For one, they are God's chosen people. He created them so that he can be with them, so he could be in their presence. And another thing that hits me is God carefully crafted the lineage throughout all of history to point to Jesus Christ. And if that lineage through the children of Israel failed at any point, there would be broken prophecies, broken promises that would show that Jesus indeed was not the Christ. He was just some other man. Yet, God preserved carefully the lineage brought through the children of Israel, the Messiah, the coming Messiah. His path was made perfect in order for him to show up on the scene, in order for him to show, to give his ultimate sacrifice to mankind. That's pretty serious stuff. God loves us, yes. We don't want to get so lost in God's punishment that we forget that he loves us. But also I think the other extreme is we get so wrapped up in, oh, God is love. God is so good. That we forget to take things seriously that he takes seriously. My prayer is that I would take sin as seriously as he does. As we read through the rest of Ezekiel, we'll see God's heart. Next chapter, chapter 6, we see that God does truly care about what his people do and don't do. I'm looking forward to continuing this journey together. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you have an awesome week. Please feel free to subscribe and to make comments on my YouTube channel here. And more than anything, I pray that this would be a blessing to you. Take care. God bless.